Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Profound. Today's episode, we are going to take a deep dive into the question, who is they? The elite's historical blueprint for global control. Today, we're going to be going into exposing a cabal of elites, bankers, royals, secret societies, tech giants who shaped the world for centuries. From the Templars' banks to the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, their tools are debt, wars, media, and ideology, aimed all at centralized control. Picture a pyramid of power, from medieval plots to digital currencies. By the end, you'll see their blueprint and a path to break free. And I think this episode is going to be an extremely important episode in profound history, and one that I'm very excited to get out to the people. So today, the agenda of what we're going to be going through is we're going to first define they. So what I mean by they is when a lot of conspirators, they refer to a people, they say they did this or they did that. And I want to define who they really are. The historical roots, the players, the modern fronts that carry on the agenda, some conspiracies that relate to this, and what the goal is for these global elites. So let's define the core. Who are they? Picture a cabal of elites, bankers, royals, secret societies, tech moguls, and they're all building a centralized empire. From the Templar banking in the 1100s to the World Economic Forum's 2020 reset, they use debt, wars, media, and ideology to dominate. Their tactics are gradual. They've been seen in the Bolshevik purges, the Balfour Declaration, the 2008 crisis, and even 9/11 theories. This is a network spanning centuries, controlling nations and lives. If you think about it, if you've ever seen the Truman Show, it's like Truman is stuck in this orchestrated society and he knows it's all fake. But what he does is he breaks out of it. And it's all this giant symbolism for like the society we live in right now and how we are all essentially Truman. So let's look at this through a historical lens, centralization versus freedom, and why globalism tends to be a problem. This presentation views history as a battle, centralization versus freedom. The elites have sought control, ancient priesthoods taxed harvests, today's bankers use fiat money. Their tools, wars, debt, media, tech, and institutions like the Fed, UN, World Economic Forum, which all erode sovereignty. These decentralized systems like Bitcoin or local government offer some resistance. From Egypt's temples to Davos' summits, the game's the same. They consolidate power. They've been stealing time since Egypt's priests. And if you don't know what fiat money is, it only obtains value from government and people's trust in it. It's actually not backed by anything. And ever since the creation of the Federal Reserve, we've relied on fiat money that isn't backed by anything physical. And we're going to run into why this is an issue and how this can be used for control. So, going over some historical precedents. So, I know this all starts farther back, but I think we're going to jump into it with the Templars and the Jesuits. So, before the Illuminati or the Fabians, there was the Knights Templar and the Jesuits. The Templars was found in 1119, and it pioneered banking, lending to kings until 1307 Purge. The Jesuits, formed in 1540, wielded intellectual power and shaped education and advised rulers. Both were early elite networks that set the template for the Freemasons and Illuminati and laid a groundwork for centralized control through the Templar banking and the influence that the Jesuits had. So I know everyone here has definitely heard about the Illuminati. What are their origins? Enlightenment or deception? They were founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, aimed to overthrow monarchies and religion with Enlightenment ideals. They infiltrated Freemason lodges, but were banned in 1785. Though short-lived, their model of subtle infiltration inspired groups like the Fabians. And was this a noble rebellion or a blueprint for elite control? The Illuminati actually didn't exist for that long, but the idea of it might still be alive and have existed forever. So, we're going to go into the legacy of the Illuminati, myth or manipulation. The Illuminati's legacy exploded in the 1790s when Barral and Robinson blamed them for the French Revolution and the New World Order. Today, theories tie them to Rothschild's Bank, the Fed, and the World Economic Forum. Anti-Semitic forgeries like the Protocol fuel these claims, and this falsely painted Jews as puppet masters. But these myths actually distract us from the real networks like the Fabians or the Council of Foreign Relations. So you can see how anti-Semitic conspiracies are being pushed, but there's actually a real plot, and I'm going to get into it soon. So now we should go into the Freemasons, a fraternity or a power hub. So born in 1717, actually before the Illuminati, with England's Grand Lodge, it transformed stonemason guilds into an elite brotherhood. Its influence is huge. There was 14 U.S. presidents from Washington to Ford were all Masons, and the Masons have been connected to fueling the American Revolution. With secret rituals and symbols like the square and compass, Freemasonry became a networking hub. But was it just a fraternity, or was it a platform for elite control? Obviously, I think hopefully everyone here has heard of the Freemasons. If you haven't heard of the Freemasons, then you can look at the symbol on the screen, and I'm sure you've seen this somewhere. They fund a lot of different projects and have a lot of influence behind the scenes. And there's normally lodges and neighborhoods, and you won't actually know who is a Freemason or not. I don't think Freemasonry itself is extremely harmful. It seems to be a great networking tool, as people at the top tend to have great relations, but there is some sort of occult belief system connected with Freemasonry, and we're going to go into another slide that connects Freemasonry and the Rothschilds. So, the Freemasons and the elites, and how is this connected to the Rothschilds? So, the Freemasonry elite ties run deep. In 1802, Nathan and James Rothschild joined London's Mutualization Lodge and their wealth-funded Masonic projects and the LSE. These networks helped broker deals like the 1917 Balfour Declaration, which we're going to get into, and anti-Semitic myths link like the Protocols of Zion, claim a Judeo-Masonic plot, but the truth is subtler. Freemasonry was a hub for elite alliances, and it wasn't actually the proponent of all these different agendas. It is more of a network where they can kind of where people in these communities can communicate with each other. So we're going to go into the Skull and Bones. So the Skull and Bones was founded in 1832 at Yale and is a secret society for America's elite. It was basically a fraternity at Yale. Members like the Bushes and John Kerry, who have shaped U.S. policy, often through Council of Foreign Relations ties, and conspiracies link it to the Illuminati, claiming it's a front for global control, while grand plots lack evidence. Its role as a networking hub leaders to the Cabal's agenda. It connects to the Cabal's agenda. And if you can see how one fraternity can be so connected to power, there's definitely some big networking ties within Yale's Skull and Bones Society. So now, I think a lot of people don't know about, but there is a real plot by the British Royalists, and it is this socialist agenda that has been here since the Revolutionary War, and they've been slowly picking at it, and they've been blaming other people. So, the Fabian Society was founded in 1884 in London, and it pushed socialism through stealth. Their logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing, which reveals their tactic: infiltrate, but don't overthrow. This was funded by Rothschild wealth, and they shaped the Labour Party and early UN frameworks. Some claim they backed the Bolsheviks, linked to 60 million deaths, though the evidence is murky. Their gradualist approach sets a globalist blueprint, and you can see how the wolf in sheep's clothing is kind of infiltrate and put these globalist ideas through education and reform subtly until it becomes the norm, and then by that time that you won't need to overthrow it, it'll be already overthrown just by ideology over time. And this is how the Fabian Society works. So their tactics of infiltration and control, the Fabians didn't storm the castles, they infiltrated them. Through groups like the Coefficients Club, they permeated education, media, and politics and shaped minds and policies. Allied with Cecil Rhodes and the Milner Group, they pushed global socialism. Their influence echoes in the World Economic Forum's stakeholder capitalism, a modern repackaging of gradual control, aiming for a world government. So when people are saying, oh, there's not a push for a global one world government, globalism isn't real, it is real, and the Fabian infiltration has been happening in the education system for a long time now. And I think people are starting to finally realize like the true proprietors behind this. Alright, next we're going to go into something called the Tavistock Institute, which I actually didn't know until prior research for this video. The Tavistock Institute was founded in 1920 with Rockefeller funding, which we'll get into him, and is a shadowy UK think tank. It's accused of psychological operations like promoting the Beatles and counterculture to shape society. Tied to Fabian gradualism, it laid groundwork for modern media control, now seen in World Economic Forum's tech partnerships, and while Grand Sayev's claims are thin, Tavistock's social engineering aligns with the cabal's aim to mold minds. If you have control of the psychology and you have control of the mind and education, then you have control of everything because you have control of the belief. So if the belief of everything is built off of a psychological operation, then where are we and what do we know? Now we're going to jump into a big name in when it comes to conspiracies with control, and this is the Rothschilds, which started with Mayer Amschel in the 1740s, which he built a banking empire financing wars like Napoleon's. Their well-shaped history funding the Suez Canal and the Balfour Declaration. They joined Freemasonry in 1802, cementing elite ties. Conspiracy theories claim they controlled central banks, but their power was through debt feeding into the Federal Reserve's model. And we're about to go into the influence of what the Rothschilds really have. So, the Rothschilds' influence went beyond banks. They funded both sides in wars, maximizing profit through Pica, acquired over 125,000 acres in Palestine. The 1917 Balfour Declaration, promising a Jewish homeland, tied to their investments. While some cry a Jewish conspiracy, the evidence actually points to British imperialism using Zionism as a geopolitical tool. So we're told that it was this Jewish plot to get the homeland back, but when you think about it, if these people are funding both sides of war, they don't really care about any Jewish plot. They care about control and they care about power. And if they want a proxy state in the Middle East and the British imperialists and the bankers are working together to try to get full control over the world and have a banking system that centralizes the whole world so they can have maximum control, it seems more plausible that this is a British imperialism using Zionism as a geopolitical tool. And how far Rothschild's influence really goes to just owning all of the wealth distribution. I think intuitively we can understand how much power that is. But honestly, I don't even know if I can grasp how much power that is. So not gonna say that for sure. So now we're gonna go into the Rockefellers, another big name when it comes to power. He was America's first billionaire, John D. Rockefeller, and he built his fortune on Standard Oil's monopoly. He was who you learned about in class when you learned about how people formed monopolies and why they're banned now. His philanthropy wasn't charity. Foundations funded eugenics, education reforms, and the Tavistock, molding society. Well, this guy's the one who wrote our education system. Think about that. The Rockefellers influenced modern banking through Chase, seeded the UN, and co-founded the Trilateral Commission, aligning with the cabal's centralized control. We're going to get into all of the big names I've been talking about later in this video when it comes to the modern places taking this out. So, the Federal Reserve, how they're centralizing money. It was created in 1913 through the Glass-Owen Act, centralizing U.S. monetary policy under figures like Paul Walberg and J.P. Morgan. It birthed the fiat money system, decoupling currency from gold, essentially making it not real. And conspiracy theorists claim Rothschild and Rockefeller control through evidence points to influence. The Fed's legacy, debt-driven economics, is paving the way for centralized backed digital currencies, and we're going to get into that later, and how to resist the push of this type of currency. I mean, right now, our money, essentially, it's just paper. There's no gold backing it. It's just our government. If our government falls, the whole system, it's all built on this sense of trust in our military and defense. And if the people making money off defense are these elites, then they're going to continue this because they're going to keep making money off of defense contracting and wars and famines and stuff like that. So I want you to see how this is a means for control. The Rockefellers' reach. The Rockefeller Foundations really reshaped the world. The 1910 Flexner Report, this is what centralized medicine and started the birth of Big Pharma. They funded UN population control, Tavistock social engineering, and co-founded the Trilateral Commission in 1973, which we can go into later, which aligned North America, Europe, and Asia. This wasn't charity, it was control, paving the way for the World Economic Forum's global agendas. Now we're going to go into the British royals, bloodlines of the empire, and we're going to really see some of the people that are in control. The British royals, now the House of Windsor, rebranded from the German Saxe-Coburg-Gotha roots to mass ties during World War I. Some evidence suggests they funded Bolsheviks through Fabian channels, contributing to up to 60 million deaths. 60 million deaths. All conjecture. Edward VIII's Nazi sympathies, documented in the Marburg files, revealed their geopolitical games. The royals align with bankers and globalists. They want control and they want money. Royals and shadows, Illuminati and Nazi links. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube, so I'm not going to say that again. Conspiracy theories paint royals as Illuminati puppet masters, linked to Hessian bloodlines to Nazi elites. Oh, I said it again. The Marburg files show Edward VIII's pro-Hitler stance in the 1930s, pushing appeasement. This tied to imperial strategies like using Zionism or Bolshevism as geopolitical tools. The royals were key players in the cabal and enabled global control. And this is a picture. I mean, look, I'm not going to say anything else. Just, you can see how they might have appeased someone who should not have been appeased for so long because of connections. That's all I'm going to go into here. Remember, this is all just conjecture as well. Okay, so we're going to go into the Vatican's role now. The Vatican holds a huge spiritual and geopolitical power. Its wealth is tied to scandals like Banco Ambrosiano in the 1980s funded global influence. It backed the 1933 transfer agreement, aiding Zionist relocation with royals and Nazis. Jesuits with intellectual sway are linked to Illuminati myths. While conspiracies exaggerate these Vatican's control, its role is aligned with the cabal's agenda. And I can see how the Vatican is being used for spiritual domination and control. The Vatican has had a shadowy past, and the Vatican has not spread the message of Christ in the way that Christ would like it to be spread. It was spread through violence, it was spread through domination, and that was not the message of Christ. I think the Vatican is tied to something deeper and something that is connected to control. So the interconnectedness, the elite web, we're about to get into the modern day right now. The cabal's power lies in this web. Freemasons, Skull and Bones, funded by Rothschild's network elites for deals like Balfour, royals and the Vatican backed Bolsheviks and Zionism, Rockefeller seeded the Federal Reserve, CFR, Trilateral, UN, and Double World Economic Forum, tying historical plots to modern globalism. This network, from medieval banks to tech-driven summits, builds a centralized empire that we are seeing. So now we're going to go into the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations, born in 1921 with not only, guess who, Rockefeller funding, is a powerhouse of U.S. foreign policy. Members like Allen Dulles and Henry Kissinger, great names, shaped wars and trade from Vietnam to globalization. Critics call it a New World Order hub, overlapping with Trilateral and Bilderberg. Its influence steers America towards globalist goals. Okay, so I've been talking about the Trilateral Commission a lot. This was launched in 1973 by not only David Rockefeller, brought together elites from North America, Europe, and Asia to manage global economics. With figures like Kissinger and Volcker, it shaped G7 policies and pushed interdependence, centralized control by another name. Their 1975 Crisis of Democracy report argued for less freedom to stabilize governance. I mean, all of this, I'm just alluding at a collective form of power that is trying to hold control, and they're doing it in certain ways, which I'll go over later, and they're using these groups that I'm talking about to push this agenda, and they've reformed education for the people to believe this agenda is the best way. Think about it. Trilateral tactics. The Trilateral Commission's tactics were subtle but powerful. They influenced trade and banking, ensuring nations leaned on each other's systems. This was tied to Rockefeller foundations. They funded population control, echoing eugenics. Their members overlapped with the Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberg, and World Economic Forum, forming a globalist trinity, eroding national sovereignty. As you can see, the global New World Order, one world government, this is the agenda. You can see the G7 photo. That's all the leaders. This was a trilateral meeting. Here's another name I've been talking about for a while, the Bilderbergs. The Bilderberg Group started in 1954, which gathers 120 to 150 elites to discuss global issues like AI, Ukraine, Trump's policy, COVID, and it's under Chatham's house secrecy. No minutes, no leaks, just closed-door deals. And guess what one of these discussions is? One of the discussions is population control. That was on the agenda this year. Some call them the kingmakers, pointing to figures like Mark Rutte, whose NATO role followed Bilderberg meetings. They raise questions about who sets the global agenda. You can see leaders that are in control. They all come to this meeting and they meet with technocrats. They meet with the billionaires. They meet with the Rothschilds. These people are all meeting once a year, and they don't disclose what they talk about. And these are the richest people in the world, and they tell you that they're doing this meeting. And you can just see how this could raise some questions with what the global agenda is going on, especially with new members often being leaders that are put into power immediately. So now we're going to go over something that is crazy, and I can't believe it's not talked about more. How the elites, they don't care about any, like, basic country club or, like, society. They have the Bohemian Grove. This is where these politicians and these elites and a lot of them meet, and they do some interesting things, I'll say the least. It was founded in 1872, and it's a secretive California retreat, actually busted by Alex Jones nonetheless, where U.S. elites like Nixon and Reagan networked. It's known for alleged occult rituals like the cremation of care. Conspiracy theories claim it's a deal-making hub tied to Bilderberg and CFR. While evidence of grand plots is scarce, its role mirrors the cabal's backroom coordination. And that's not all that goes on there. As you can see, they're all men and they're all politicians. I can leave it at that. So how does Bilderberg influence or shape the West? The Bilderberg's influence is vast. Attendees like Kissinger and Pompeo shape EU and NATO policies, aligning Western nations. It ties to the Freemason networks and Rockefeller wealth. Bilderberg isn't just a meeting, it's a coordination hub. Their secret discussions steer policies from tech to trade towards centralization, often before the public knows. And these groups, they meet once a year, and something always happens after. The new members are normally put into positions of power, and a lot is given out to just a few people before we'll ever know. It gives off more of the Truman Show vibes I was talking about. The World Economic Forum. Often related and connected to the Great Reset agenda. Okay, so the World Economic Forum, founded by Klaus Schwab, another great individual, in 1971, pushes public-private cooperation. Their 2020 Great Reset, launched post-COVID, calls for stakeholder capitalism blending people, planet, and profit. Critics see it as a totalitarian plot with phrases like "own nothing, be happy," sparking fears. The World Economic Forum's vision builds on centuries of gradualist control. The World Economic Forum, you can see these people, they put it on their website. Their agenda is by 2030, they want a depopulation and they want a total globalist economy and control. These people want power, they meet, do some research on the World Economic Forum, just go on their website, their whole agenda is laid out there. This is where it can get a little conspiracy related. I mean, you can see the UN, how it could be a globalist hub. The United Nations, founded in 1945 with Rockefeller, land is a globalist cornerstone. Its ancient Agenda 21 and 2030 Sustainable Developmental Goals push population control and global governance. Actually, what I was just talking about. Conspiracy theories call it a New World Order precursor, paving the way for WEF's agendas. While not a secret government, the UN's centralized policies align with the cabal's aim to unify nations under elite control. I think next episode I might go into how they're going to try to spark this globalist control. I think that'll be a good one to do next. So, now we're going to go into the World Economic Forum's global reach, which is pretty fucking stunning. Excuse my language. Their Young Global Leaders program trains figures like Trudeau and Macron and has infiltrated over 50% of some nations' cabinets. Backed by Rockefeller wealth and linked to the CFR, Trilateral, and Bilderberg, the World Economic Forum molds leaders to push unified global policies, trade, digital IDs for centralized control. If you ever watched that Black Mirror episode, Nosedive, they want that. They want the AI technocratic Palantir surveillance state. That's what they want. Big tech, the new elite. Big tech, Google, Meta, and others have become a new elite. Through World Economic Forum's Trusted News initiative, they control narratives, they censor dissenting misinformation, and their data collection enables mass surveillance, extending the reach. Building on Rockefeller-funded media, these tech giants align with the World Economic Forum and the Council of Foreign Relations, tightening control in the digital age and leading to the new age of censorship. If you go on any social media, there's censorship. It doesn't matter. Either way, you go on X, you go on Meta, everything has censorship. Jimmy Kimmel just got taken off the air. The right is now participating in cancel culture. It is crazy. Okay, so how do these people stay in power? How do these people stay in power? The cabal's power rests on debt and wars. As we said, the Rothschilds fund both sides of conflicts, like the Napoleonic Wars, so they profit regardless. So they're going to want conflict to keep continuing, because if you're profiting off wars, why would you want wars to stop? And war is a means of power, because it gets the people distracted because all of a sudden they're all focused they're in a fear-based mindset and they're focused on war. And the Rockefellers extended this through Chase Bank and the Federal Reserve, tying nations to debt. The Balfour Declaration, backed by Rothschild alone, was a geopolitical payoff and lending enslaved nations to financial dependence. We could see how they use debt as a mean of power. They put everyone into debt. They give out loans and they enslave nations because they are financially dependent on their banks. They own the world, like these bankers, and that's how they stay in power and how these elites keep their control. Another way that these people stay in power is ideology and media. We went over this earlier and how they infiltrated the education system and how they infiltrated ideology. Beyond debt, the cabal controls through ideology and media. Fabians and the Tavistock infiltrated schools and media. Rockefeller funded the education programs and the Flexner Report. This is pushing socialism subtly. Rockefellers funded eugenics and media outlets to engineer society. If you know about Project Mockingbird, it's how the CIA is basically in control of all of our media. Tucker Carlson is a son of a CIA agent, and we think he's reliable. The World Economic Forum's trusted news initiative partners with tech giants to shape narratives, framing compliance as a virtue, and it molds minds for global control. Oh man. So, what is the new fiat? How are they going to create this control system when it comes to money? And what they're going to do is they're going to go through central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. And this is World Economic Forum vision for money. All digital, trackable, and controlled by a central bank. And unlike Bitcoin, which offers centralized freedom, these CBDCs enable surveillance of every transaction, extending the fiat system of the Fed. And this promoted convenience is a tool for financial control. As you can see through this Venn diagram, Bitcoin versus a centralized bank digital currency, you just take a second to look at it. Limited supply. Bitcoin has limited supply. The central bank digital currency does not. The privacy, the censorship, how it's open and permissionless. Okay, and you can use Bitcoin as a way to decentralize the system, and I don't see Bitcoin going down anytime soon. So now we're going to go into cryptocurrency manipulation. Elites fear Bitcoin's decentralized power, so they're going to fight back. Through regulations and promoting centralized coins, they aim to co-opt crypto markets, undermining the freedom Bitcoin offers. Bitcoin is a limited supply. Conspiracy theories suggest sabotage to protect fiat systems like the Fed's. While speculative, the push to regulate decentralization echoes the cabal's need to maintain financial control. To stay in control, they have to be in control of the money. If Bitcoin takes over, they aren't in control of the money. How are they going to track and keep a hold of the system that they want so much power and control over and centralization? Okay, so I'm not saying that climate change isn't a thing, but I'm going to say how they're using climate agendas to create false scarcity and push their power. Okay, so the World Economic climate agendas, like the net zero and carbon credits, are sold as saving the planet, but they serve control. These policies create scarcity, driving profits for elites while restricting resources. So it's getting them richer while getting less resources for the people. Some claim they're population control, disguised as environmentalism. Building on Rockefeller's scarcity myths, these green agendas extend the cabal's financial grip. And this is a huge money grab for these politicians and a huge way these elites are making money now. I'm not going to say more about this. Okay, so this is all speculative, but we're going to go into the 2008 financial crisis, which was triggered by the mortgage bubble. I think everyone knows this. And it saw Rockefeller-linked banks like J.P. Morgan Chase bailed out while the middle class crumbled. I remember I watched that movie, The Big Short, and I remember after when I saw they all got bailed out and they all got bonuses. I mean, this was ridiculous. They paid they paid out the rich people, and the middle class suffered. And I mean, I can't see how this isn't connected to power and making the middle class poorer. Conspiracy theories claim the Fed and Rothschild Rockefeller banks orchestrated as a wealth grab. I mean, while this was speculative, the crisis enriched elites and set the stage for centralized bank digital currencies, reinforcing this financial control. Was 2008 financial crisis used as a currency reset? I mean, only time will tell. So now, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go over this a little more, because I think there's a little fishy about this topic, and I don't want to get into any anti-Semitic claims, because I'm not going to make these, because I don't think this is a completely Jewish movement at all. Maybe some people are Jewish, but that doesn't have anything to do with the Jewish people or the Jewish faith at all. So, Zionism offers a case study. The 1917 Balfour Declaration, which was backed by the Rothschild land purchases through Pica, promised a Jewish homeland. And then the 1933 Transfer Agreement saw royals, the Vatican, and the Nazis relocate Jews to Palestine. Conspiracy theories say that it's a Jewish plot, but the evidence points to the British imperialism using Zionists as a geopolitical lever. As I talked about earlier, like, is this a proxy state for the royals, which made the deal with the Rothschilds for more power, and to use Israel as this proxy for the Middle East to keep the Western society and power in control? I think that's all I'm going to touch on here. And if you guys want me to go over anything else in more specifics, I would love to. So some specific conspiracies. I mean, we've all heard of JFK and 9/11. They're definitely linked to the deep state. I mean, JFK spoke out against the CIA and Israel, and he was killed. 9/11. There's too much fishy, weird stuff happening there. It points all to an elite orchestration for war, but the evidence, it's there, but it's thin. This distracts from the cabal's structural power through debt, media, and global forums. But as you can see, the Patriot Act right after 9/11, how they used it for a lot more like security measures and control. You can see how it might as well have been an inside job. So the cabal's modern face is clear. The CFR shapes U.S. policy for globalism. Trilateral pushes economic interdependence. The Bilderberg aligns the Western agendas, and the World Economic Forum, UN, and Big Tech advance the CBDC's climate controls and surveillance. Bitcoin challenges their fiat system, so you can use that as a resistance, and these forums and tech giants are the latest chapter in a century-old playbook. It's always been there. How do we resist? How do we decentralize the power? How do we fight they? History shows empires fall when over-centralized. The answer is decentralization. Bitcoin to bypass fiat control. Local governance to defy globalist mandates. From Rothschild's banks to big tech surveillance, their power thrives on centralized systems. By embracing decentralized alternatives, we reclaim sovereignty. The path forward. Exposing the web. The path forward starts with exposure. The elites must be audited, follow the money from the Rothschilds to the World Economic Forum, trace bloodline ties from royals to tech moguls, reject central bank digital currencies, climate controls, tech surveillance, building local networks. Truth tellers like Epstein or Turing face censorship or worse. The empire is burning. Shine a light. Act locally. I mean, if Epstein spent some more time in jail, we probably would know a lot more. And I think there's a lot to be told there. I'm going to get my final thoughts off on the last slide. So, now that we've unmasked who they are in the best way I could for 40 minutes, from the Templars, banks, to big tech, what's your take on this? I mean, we've spotted connections throughout all these groups. The veil is lifting. These elite networks have been exposed from the Rothschilds to the big tech. We can see this centralized grip is being broken one step at a time. And I think Gen Z is seeing through this more and more. I just don't want to see the hatred and division divide people even more, because that's part of their plan. They want people to be divided. They want that because that's part of their control. They use divide and control as a technique for power. This is how these people stay in power. They keep the people divided, and they keep the ideologies cross-sected, and they're using social media as a tool to do that. How do we, when the veil lifts, the freedom awaits. I mean, we have to see through these people as a society, and we have to call this out. And we can't label people who point out these not even coincidences, but these organizations that are right in front of our face that are controlling the world. And maybe we can go back and trace the money, because I think the money's the real trail here. If you just trace the money, you'll know where the real influence and the real power comes from. And these people, what they want is they want power, they want control. These people are no longer what human means to you. These people have transcended being a human being. They're no longer. And there's no other alternative. Time is running out. Their control is only going to continue unless something is done about it. And time is running out. There's no other alternative. Time is running out. And that's the final message there. I think I'm going to go more into depth about a few different things in this video. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment. I really spent a lot of time on this, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.